Hamish Kerr. Getting ready, Sarah.
Kerr, will he or will he not? He's taken his run up back slightly, I've seen. He's looking for support. The crowd at Newtown Park is willing him on. Let's go, Hamish. Here he goes.
He's done it.
Oh, he's done it! He's done it!
A new national
Sorry
record.
for yelling, but that is the best high jump result in New Zealand's history. Hamish Kerr, take a bow. What a clearance.
2 metres 31.
Outstanding.
I knew all season that that was the comp that, you know, my family were going to be there and they're going to be able to watch me, and so I just, you know, I took that into my comp and I produced, you know, the best jump that you've ever seen in New Zealand. So I think that was pretty exciting to own the national record outright. I previously shared it with Glenn Howard. To own it outright is pretty special. But again, it's just the start. Like for me, the jump that I did to clear that 231, it wasn't my best jump I've ever done. It just happened to be at the right time. So yeah, so I kind of got off the mat and I saw the bar still up, and you know, I was obviously super stoked, but I kind of was like, cool, well, you know, that's that one ticked off and let's go to the next one. I am Hamish Kerr. I am 24 years old and I represent New Zealand in high jump. I have been doing the sport for about 4 years seriously, and in that time I have broken the national record, gone to world champs, and done a few other bits and pieces, but this will be my first Olympics, and so I'm very excited about that. I grew up in Auckland and have moved down here to Christchurch to, you know, pursue my athletics full time. I came from a medium-sized family. There is 3 siblings. Yeah, so there was me and my older sister, and then 5 years, and then James and Rebecca, who are twins. So it was quite a cool balance. There was, you know, the two older ones and the 2 younger ones, and so, you know, there was quite a lot of competitivity when we were younger. We were a very outdoorsy family. Like, you know, we did a lot of stuff. Mum and Dad really pushed us into tramping and, you know, like playing sport and being outside. But I've come from quite an academic family. My dad's a doctor and my mum's in the health profession as well. So they saw that as something to balance out, you know, the rest of our studies and the rest of our sort of upbringing, and sort of how we were raised was that you pretty much can commit to anything you want, but if you do, you're going to commit fully. And so, yeah, I think that was kind of where I got my attitude towards wanting to play sport was, you know, I just want to do this and I want to see how far I can go. I came from a family where, you know, I'm not doing something that's really that traditional, you know, like being an athlete was something that initially my parents were kind of like, you know, it's good that you're doing your study and I think you should focus on that. Like, you know, maybe see how that goes and then you can see if the sport works. But, you know, they've really come around to it, and I think they've just been so supportive in the fact that, you know, I've found something I'm passionate about and that I want to, you know, work really hard at, and they just love that, and that's just something that they instilled in us when we were growing up, is, you know, you just work really hard and you know, you'll get the results. And if you don't get the results, then at least you've tried. And so I think that was something that was really massive. I remember in primary school, I jumped 105, which was, you know, it's quite small, but I jumped 105 and I came over the bar and landed on the mat and my knee hit my nose and I got a blood nose and I cried. And that was probably the first time I ever did high jump. My first coach that I had, who's a guy called Chris Traven, he was an athletics coach, but he understood that as a child, you know, you need to do just more than just high jump. So for me, you know, like, high jump's a pretty intense thing. It's like, you know, it's quite a singular like event. You pretty much have 9 strides and then jump, and that's it. You know, it's pretty hard to think about that every day. And so as a child, you know, trying to go, you know, into being a full-time high jumper, it's just not possible. You can't do it sustainably. And so for him, he was my high jump coach, but he wanted me to go out and, you know, go for runs and you know, if there was days where it was like, oh, sorry, I can't come to training because I'm actually going to go play soccer with my mates or go to basketball or whatever, he was like, that's absolutely fine, you know, that's like what you need to do. Yeah, it was quite sad. Chris died of cancer 2 years into coaching me, and it was something that he had this squad of athletes who, of those athletes, there's probably about 4 of us who are still doing athletics to this day. Chris's passing, I wouldn't say was like it didn't change my career, but it just made me realise that, there was someone who was just going to commit us right to the very, he was committed to us right till the very end, and to have that commitment, I'll still to this day have hard trainings where at the end of it I'll just kind of stop and think thanks Chris, and that's something that still is a massive part of what I do. And I think that just to know that there's people out there who are so committed to helping people, I think it's just so inspiring. And so I think as the years have gone by, I've sort of realised how lucky I was to have him as part of my early sport team. So I guess from there, I kept doing it through high school, and I did a lot of running and I did a lot of jumping as well. I then went to Palmerston North for university, and I sort of stepped back from the sport for a while. I just focused on my studies and just wanted to explore that part of my life. And then when I got to the end of my university career, I kind of realised how much sport was a part of my life and how I really missed that. And so I reached out to Terry Lomax, who's my current coach, around whether he'd pick me up and start coaching me a little bit more full time. And so I moved down to Christchurch at the start of 2018, and I've pretty much been here ever since.
Yeah, so he's moved down from Auckland. He's not a one-eyed can-tab at this stage, but we're working on it. He still supports the Blues, so maybe there's no hope. It helps that I was a high jumper, so I understand his mind a wee bit in terms of what he's going through. Yeah, he's an emotional person in that he uses his emotions to get himself up to compete, and I was a wee bit like that myself. I liken high jumping to being like an actor on a stage, and the high jump fan is your stage and you're central and everybody's watching you perform. But behind that comes organisation, planning, analysis and all those sorts of things, and that's the coaching side, I suppose, that I bring to try and bring out his natural abilities.
So when I moved here 3 years ago, I jumped to 217. I have now improved to 231, which is probably about that much more, and then to jump 240 is probably about that much. So, and you guys do the math, I'm more than halfway there, and I feel like I've only just started this process. Coaching's
a relationship business, and a lot of it is reading the moods and behaviours of your athletes. Like there'll be days when he'll come to training and he'll be in a bad mood, and he won't be quite as accepting, you might say, of criticism or input, and so it's learning about when to press the buttons and which buttons to press. But he understands that, and as an ex-athlete I understand there are times when he's frustrated and things aren't going well, but sometimes you just got to get through it. It's got to mean something for you to do a maximal performance, and yes, training means something, but we're normally working on technical aspects and those sorts of things in a training session, and you don't want to waste your best performances on the training track, because they don't give gold medals for what happens at training. They give it at the competition, and especially an event like high jump where you're competing against a bit of fiberglass suspended up on top of a couple of poles, and you're there and you've got to try and overcome that, and it takes a lot of mental strength to do that, and again, you don't want to use it all up in training. High jump's given me like a good approach to life. I think that the way that I commit myself, the way I can manage a team. I obviously am the one jumping, but the people in my corner take a bit of management. I've got a lot of different stakeholders that I have to juggle. It teaches me a lot about inputs versus outputs. Like I obviously have a bunch of different things that I put into this process. I've got my training, I've got my mindset, I've got everything, and I've got a bunch of outputs that I want to produce. I want to produce heights, I want to produce medals, and so it's working out the balance of those and how I juggle those is really, I've been taught a lot about that with high jump, and I think it's just taught me how much I can push myself. Like I've really challenged how deep I can go in training and how deep I can go physically and mentally, and that's something that I don't think I would have ever got anywhere else in my life. I mean, I probably looked up to guys like Usain Bolt,
Muhammad Ali, like guys like that who not only were very good at their sport, but they changed their sport. For the last few years, I've just been dipping my toes in and just seeing if I want to commit myself to the sport and if I want to, continue in the future. And I think that I'm getting to the realization that I really do want to see how far I can go with this. And I think in terms of me as an athlete, I don't see there's any reason why I couldn't be the best in the world. I think that I've got all the things that it takes. I think I've got the attitude, I've got the body, I've got the mindset. I just need to put it all together. So for me, I think that I could be a world champion, I could be an Olympic champion. And in terms of jumping, I want to jump 240, which is something that would put me into the top sort of echelon of jumpers in history. And I think I can definitely do that.